All right, guys, welcome to this next presentation. I'm going to be here talking all about e-commerce, about selling online, about the opportunities that exist within the e-commerce space right here in South Africa. We'll take a bit of a global perspective. We'll look at COVID and how that's impacted the market. And I'm going to unpack for you the opportunity that exists within e-commerce. You know, so many industries have been severely impacted in a very negative way from the last 18 months. And it's been really hard for so many people. For those of us in e-commerce, it's been a strange experience because it hasn't been a negative experience. It's actually been one that's boosted the industry. And personally, I felt a little bit of guilt around that in the beginning, where other industries were being hit hard, and yet everybody in e-commerce was kind of like just on this upward growth curve. And we wondered if it was going to be a temporary thing. You know, last year around about this time, you might remember that e-commerce was also locked down along with the rest of retail. But then Minister Patel, we managed to get him to unleash e-commerce. And unleash is the right word because when he enabled e-commerce and allowed us to start trading online again, oh my goodness, it was like having Black Friday every single day because every single South African who needed to buy something, they couldn't just go down to the shops and get it. They had to start looking at e-commerce. And before that, if I rewind a few years further back, we were tracking year-on-year growth at about 25%, like growth from one year to the next. And it was like the steady, beautiful curve of growth that was bringing about massive successes. And then COVID came about, and that growth curve took a step, like a hockey stick turn in the right direction, which is up. Because all of a sudden, consumer behavior changed, shopping behavior changed. People had to start shopping online. And the growth that we've been experiencing over the years prior to COVID had largely been consumers trying it out and telling their friends and people kind of warming up to the idea and researching it and seeing if they trust online. And suddenly overnight, everybody had to try it, to trust it. And when that happened, there was a ton of consumers that were experiencing e-commerce for the very first time. And they experienced how easy it is to shop around, to go from one website to the next, to compare prices, to compare different companies and suppliers by reading their reviews, and then to experience the convenience of having something delivered to your front door. Yeah, you order it online today, and tomorrow or in the next few days, it gets delivered right to your hands. It's really convenient. And so after COVID, like, you know, since the hard lockdowns, still in COVID, so I can't say after COVID, but after those very hard lockdowns, we wondered what might happen. Was it a temporary glitch in the matrix that all of this surge of e-commerce was just going to be here and then gone again? But what happened is that consumers who experienced e-commerce for the first time, well, many of them have stuck around. They've seen the convenience, they've seen how easy it is, and they just love the process. And so what's happened is that there are more people worldwide, and especially here in South Africa, who are now shopping online. And with that, there is so much more opportunity for entrepreneurs to start looking at e-commerce as the real opportunity, which we've always known it was. But that growth curve that was kind of interesting in the past, well, now it is very interesting. It is so interesting just because of the growth that's happened in terms of the base of consumers that has suddenly exploded. The number of customers that are just looking to buy their stuff online. And what does this mean for an entrepreneur that is now looking at this as an opportunity? Because the other thing that comes with a lot of consumers is that there's a lot of new entrepreneurs that are selling online. And that means more competition. And it's a really interesting space right now because there's a lot of entrepreneurs who now suddenly feel that they've missed the boat, that they should have got into it before COVID. Like, oh, I wish I could have seen that COVID was coming about. Nobody could have seen that. But for those of us that were in e-commerce before this, it's been a wonderful experience. I'll be honest. I'll be truthful about that. It's been a big growth phase. But the question that I hear so many times is whether or not there's still opportunity for new entrepreneurs to be looking at this, or for an entrepreneur who might be dabbling with a bit of e-commerce. Like, is there opportunity for them to grow a sustainable, big, profitable brand? And the answer to that question is without a doubt, yes. Yes, there is. And I'll tell you why. Because that growth curve that we were experiencing before lockdown, before COVID, yes, we had a step growth, and that growth curve is now continuing to grow. It is still expanding, it is still growing, and it's going to be growing for a very long time, long into the future. You know, one of the things that I've always done as an entrepreneur down here at the bottom tip of Africa is I look at international trends. I look at America, I look at Europe, I see what's happening there, what is working there, what are the trends there, and then let's look at doing it here. Because just like every trend, almost every trend, when it happens there, it comes here after a few months or a few years. When I started selling online in South Africa, the first product that I sold online in South Africa was a GoPro camera. You guys know what a GoPro is, right? Nobody else knew what that was. I was the very first person in Africa to be selling those products. How did I identify that that was going to be a good product? I watched international trends. I saw it was kicking off there. I saw it was exploding there. And yet there was nobody doing it here. So watching these trends helps us to look into the future, for lack of a better term. Being in South Africa, we have a great advantage that we can look into the future. We can see what works. We can let the Americans and the Europeans try new things and see what works and what doesn't work. And we just take what works and make it work for ourselves down here. So I was able to use that trend watching to see that GoPro was going to be a big seller. And later I did the same thing with drones, and it's helped me so much over the years. And now, as we look at trends and growth curves and statistics, it's very clear to see that e-commerce is here to stay. It is growing because I can see, it's very clear, the statistics are on the internet, free for you to Google right now. You can see that the growth of e-commerce across America and across Europe and all first world developed countries, it's still growing for them. In America, e-commerce transactions make up 19% of total retail trade. In South Africa, we're looking at about 3%, maybe thereabout. And so if we look at the growth that we've had, it is nothing compared to the growth that is coming. I watched a wonderful presentation, a discussion with Jack Ma. Jack Ma, he's the founder of Alibaba. Now, he was encouraging us to consider the growth that e-commerce has had over the past decade and a half. The last 15 years, e-commerce has been able to grow based on a very poor infrastructure, to say the least. Rewind 10, 15 years, and deliveries were really difficult. Customers didn't trust them. They didn't work. We couldn't send tracking updates. It was a real pain. And yet we were able to deliver products. Payments were really, really tricky to actually make it happen on your website. When I launched my first website, to be able to take a credit card transaction, it took me 3.5 months to get my site approved and accredited by, I had to send it for approval with Visa in Switzerland, and then later with MasterCard in America. Only then could I start taking credit card transactions on my site. Now I can show you how to do it in minutes. So the payments are now not only easier to set up, but they are more trusted by consumers. Customers are used to shopping online. They know how to, they are savvy, and they trust the process. So logistics was a pain. Now it works. Payments was really tricky. Now it's easy. And likewise, being able to build an e-commerce website, it used to be, oh, wow, it's like you needed a rocket science degree to be able to build a website. And now I show my students how to do it in just a few simple, easy steps. It is easier now than ever before. Trust me, that is the truth. And so if we look at how far we've come based on all this difficult infrastructure, and this is what Jack Ma was encouraging us to look at, he says now we need to look into the future because logistics are established. Payments are trusted. E-commerce websites are easier to build than ever before. And so the growth is set to really, really explode. And if I circle back to that question from so many entrepreneurs, like, is there space? Is there opportunity? Is there a chance for me to see this as an opportunity? Absolutely yes. Because if we're going to grow our retail in South Africa from 3% of total retail being e-commerce sales, if we're going to grow it from 3% and we're going to follow a similar trend to America, to Europe, and that's going to grow from 3% to 19%, then yes, there is opportunity for new companies to come into the market. Yes, there is opportunity for you to start a business right now and to explode it into the future. And we've got to remember that every big brand, every big company that we know today, all of those started as a small business. All of them started as an idea. All it took was somebody to have the belief and the perseverance to take that small idea and build it into a big, successful business. And now is absolutely a great opportunity, a great time for you to get into e-commerce. If you haven't started yet, get in now, because now as this growth curve continues to kick up and gets bigger and bigger, it's going to attract more and more and more attention. And with that attention, there's going to be even more people jumping into the market. So the sooner you can start, the sooner you can go through the learning curve that every single entrepreneur needs to go through in order to be able to build, launch, and start growing their online sales. It is a learning curve that everybody has to go through. And the only way you can go through it and get started is to just get started. Just figure it out on the way. With the Insaka e-commerce academy, We have so many free resources that will help you to get started. And we have premium training for those of you that would like to accelerate your learning curve. And as you can go through that learning curve, you can start to build your own successful e-commerce business. And you can take the COVID experience, one that was so negative for so many different people, and you can use one of the few opportunities that exist from the lockdowns, from COVID. And if we look at it and we look at it properly, most industries were negatively impacted. There was almost all of them. There was only a few industries that were positively impacted because of COVID. And they're largely technology firms like robotics, like video calls, like companies in the medical industry. Those were advanced quite nicely. And online security, IT security infrastructure, that was a big one too. And e-commerce, let's not forget e-commerce. And if I think back to the industries that I've just mentioned, robotics, video calling, video meeting online, IT security, and e-commerce, there's not many of those that I've just listed that are easy for an entrepreneur to be able to get into. These are some of the biggest opportunities happening in our lifetime. And e-commerce is on that list, and e-commerce is easy for you to get into. And I say it is easy because it is relatively easier to start an e-commerce business than other businesses. It is also less risky. Because if you're thinking about starting a shop or a different type of business, you might actually have to go and sign a lease, pay rent. You might have to sign a rental lease for 12 months. Oh my gosh, that's a big commitment. You might have to hire people. You might have to hire a team of salespeople or staff in the shop, or a team of people to answer the phone calls, depending on what business you're going to start. That's a big commitment. There's risk associated with that. And yet with an e-commerce business, you can start in your spare time. You can play around with it. You can register a store. You can try it out. And you can do that in your spare time. You can do it on your lunch break after the kids have gone to sleep. And if it didn't work out, heaven forbid, then you wouldn't have had to invest your whole life savings into this business, because you can really get started with very little capital. Heck, you can even start without buying inventory. I teach my students how to do that too. And so when you're looking at starting a business, when you're looking at innovation and starting something new, then you should be looking at e-commerce, because it is an easier business to get into. It's never been easier. It is a less risky business to get into, and you can start with relatively little capital. So if anybody asks me if there's an opportunity around e-commerce, the answer is yes. As you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate about this topic. And the other question that I get all the time is, what about all the competition? Well, let me leave you with this idea now. No matter which industry you're in, e-commerce or another, if there is competition, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Because if the fact that there are competitors in that space, it tells you that there are customers in that space, that there are customers willing to part with their money to buy whatever you're going to be selling. And so that's actually a good thing. The proof of concept is there. All you need to do is get into the game and put yourself in a competitive advantage where you can get some of the sales. There is a big slice of the pie, and you can get your slice. And if you're looking at e-commerce, oh my gosh, that pie is growing all the time. And this is a really exciting space. And I hope that anybody who's thinking about getting into this will certainly consider getting into e-commerce. And in order to get your journey started, you are very welcome to visit the Insaka website, insaka.co.za. Go to the free resources section, and you will be amazed at how many free tools and PDFs and checklists and mini courses we've created to help you get started. I really do want to help you get started. You know, my journey started back in 2010, and it's been a long, difficult journey as I had to figure it out all on my own. And now through Insaka, I've been able to create all the tools, the resources, the community, the support, and the coaching to help you achieve your success faster. So go and check out that website, go and get some free resources and get started. Now is the time. Now is your opportunity. Go and get it.